Thank you, Sophie Cunningham. I appreciate you for confirming what we all knew anyway. She confirmed it without even trying to confirm it, y'all. Shout out to Sophie Cunningham. Stephanie White's system was not catered to or built around Caitlin Clark. Make no mistake about it.
Sophie Cunningham just confirmed what fans suspected all along. The Indiana Fever system was never built around Caitlin Clark. On her podcast, Sophie revealed that Clark had to step in and reshape parts of the offense just to play her natural game. That's huge. It means Clark wasn't just a rookie trying to fit in, she was helping design the playbook. Cunningham explained that only generational players get that kind of freedom, and Clark had earned it. This insight completely changes how we view the Fever's struggles last season. What looked like inconsistency was actually a team caught between...
She confirms that Caitlin Clark had to change things in that system so that she could try to play her game. She jammed Stephanie White all the way up.
Sophie Cunningham's latest podcast episode just changed the narrative around the Fever season. She confirmed Caitlin Clark wasn't following orders. She was rewriting them. Sophie said Clark had the green light to control the offense, a privilege almost unheard of for a first-year player. But it wasn't smooth sailing. This new information exposes the real tension between Clark and coach Stephanie White. White wanted a half-court, structured system, while Clark thrives in a fast...
Because those types of athletes, they get to come into an organization, they have the green light, and they can do whatever they want. Where that is very rare to get drafted and be able to control the whole system.
Right. Was CeCe making decisions like...
Yeah.
With it? Yeah.
As she should.
No way.
As she should, but I also think that they... Go ahead.
That's crazy. I didn't realize that. She's just young. I just didn't think that's...
Paced, decision-driven style. Those two systems collided head-on. Fans thought the Fever struggles were just early season growing pains, but Sophie's words reveal it was a deeper identity war. Clark's visible frustration, the awkward rotations, and the lack of rhythm now make perfect sense. She wasn't just adjusting to the pros. She was battling for control of the very system she played in. The question now, can Indiana truly build around Caitlin Clark's strength?
But when you have a generational talent like that, she should have a lot to say of the system.
Behind the highlights and viral threes, Caitlin Clark's leadership isn't loud, it's calculated. Sophie Cunningham revealed that Clark doesn't dominate with her voice. She leads through energy, tempo, and control. She watches every possession like a chess match, studying how defenders move, how spacing shifts, and when to strike. That's rare for a rookie. But Sophie says it's also what caused friction early on. Some veterans weren't used to taking cues from a 22-year-old star, even if she was the most skilled player on the court.
Sophie Cunningham was on her podcast, and she got to talking about the Indiana Fever system and Stephanie White and Kelsey Mitchell with Caitlin Clark and how it all meshes together. And long story short, it wasn't meshing together. Caitlin Clark had to forcefully make some changes. She had to.
Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark, two basketball minds that couldn't quite sync. Sophie Cunningham hinted that White wanted structure and control, while Clark needed freedom to improvise. Both were right, but both couldn't coexist. Sophie described it like driving a sports car with the parking brake on. Every time Clark pushed the pace, White slowed it down. Every time the Fever gained momentum, the system reset. It wasn't personal, it was philosophical. The veteran coach saw discipline. The young star saw opportunity. Sophie's take sheds light on how these tensions shaped the Fever's identity crisis. Was this a learning curve or
Stephanie White, you knew you were coming to the Indiana Fever. You should already know the system Caitlin wants to play. Why did she have to make changes to your system to play her game? And we also know that this did not go over so smoothly because we saw Stephanie White taking shots at her on TV.
Every team says we're united until losing tests the truth. Sophie Cunningham's words suggest that the Fever's locker room did, in fact, split during that mid-season slump. Some players stood by the system. Others followed Clark's on-court instincts. Sophie didn't name names, but her tone said enough. It wasn't drama, it was identity confusion. Players weren't sure who to listen to. When structure meets spontaneity, you either adapt or fracture. By the time they found rhythm, playoff hopes were already fading. Sophie's insight explains why chemistry lagged despite clear talent. You can't build flow when the philosophy itself is divided. Despite the chaos, Sophie Cunningham's respect for Caitlin Clark is undeniable. She called her the real deal, saying Clark's film study and work ethic are elite even by WNBA standards. Sophie admitted Clark's daily habits, early gym sessions,
Caitlin Clark not feeling the system that has been in place by Stephanie White. Pretty much we like to call this the Connecticut offense, and really the Connecticut experiment, because that's the hand Caitlin Cup was dealt with going into the 2025 season. Stephanie White was hired to be the new coach. She came over from Connecticut, and she brought some backs with her like DeWanna Bonner and her whole system that was ran around DeWanna Bonner. Well, she tried to run that same system with Caitlin Clark. And you want to know what happened? Now, I'm not saying this contributed to Caitlin getting hurt, but that whole system did not work.
recovery routines, attention to detail set a tone for younger players. It's the kind of commitment that forces everyone to raise their level. Sophie even joked that Clark's intensity makes practices feel like playoff games. It's clear Cunningham doesn't just see Clark as hype. She sees her as a new standard for how the next generation of WNBA stars will train, think, and compete.
We saw Stephanie White play Caitlin Clark at small forward. We saw Caitlin Clark play small forward for an entire game. So don't get it twisted. Sophie is saying, yeah, Caitlin Clark has say-so, da-da-da. Caitlin Clark had to go enforce herself to say, hey, what the hell is going on? I'm not doing all this off-ball stuff. You got me playing small forward. I'm not getting to play my game. I'm about to force some changes to be made.
Sophie Cunningham also peeled back another layer, the mental side. She said Clark faced pressure like no rookie ever has. Media, marketing, expectations. Yet she handled it with focus. No meltdowns, no excuses. Sophie described Clark as someone who channels pressure into motivation. Even in rough stretches, she kept studying film, talking with coaches, and taking accountability. That's what separates hype from legacy. Cunningham's insight shows that Clark's biggest weapon isn't her shot, it's her mindset. The game slows down for players who think 3 steps ahead. And that's exactly who Caitlin Clark is becoming. Off the court, Sophie Cunningham didn't hold back. She praised Caitlin Clark's confidence and style, saying her walk, fashion, and presence make her a brand of her own. But Sophie added that it's not about vanity, it's about identity. The way Clark carries herself reflects how she plays, bold, composed, and unapologetically herself. Sophie compared it to old-school swagger meeting modern influence. The message? A confidence is part of the game. Clark is a—
Look, Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White clearly like and respect one another, right? But that doesn't mean they always see eye to eye. And I am beginning to suspect more and more that there's a bit of a divide between the way that they see the game and the way that they think the Indiana Fever should play.
Sophie Cunningham ended her comments with a quiet warning to the rest of the league. They're not done. She believes once Indiana fully unlocks Clark's system, the Fever will become a top-tier team. The chemistry, the spacing, the flow, it's all coming together. Sophie said, "Give them one more season, and you'll see what real rhythm looks like." That's confidence coming from a competitor. The Fever may have stumbled this year, but the foundation is built. Clark's vision, Boston's strength, and a coach willing to adjust. That's a dangerous combination. The next chapter isn't about rebuilding. It's about revenge.
But the fact of the matter is, it should not have come down to that. You knew where you were signing. You knew the player that the team was supposed to be built around. You're supposed to have a system in place that caters to her. Matter of fact, you're supposed to build the system with her. Hey, what do you like? What do you want to run here? What do you want to run there? How do you like that? You're supposed to build this thing out with her, not bring your Connecticut system, have her playing small forward for a handful of games, and now she gotta change the system and enforce her power.